Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is a 3-part mini-series by the fantastic mind of the writer under the name of Gas_Menocide. We head to the deep, dank Everglades, where the mystery lurks at every corner and a bad smell in the air, I'm sure. As ever, guys, please do let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build this channel and community. Your likes and shares and comments really do help with getting our name out on the algorithm. And of course, if you too have a story to share or possibly want to speak to me about something that took place and it doesn't make sense, you can get at me at dmtforestofear@gmail.com. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled You Haven't Seen What I've Seen Unless You've Been in the Everglades. Part 1. Let's get straight into that. You don't know what lurks out in the swamps. I had to find out for myself. I don't know how I survived, what I survived. I don't know what I saw out in the swamp. But all I know is that it's not human. This story takes place last summer in southeast Florida, in the Everglades National Park. I was working as a fire watch, and that particular summer was strangely dry, with hot days reaching 110 degrees Fahrenheit on average. Now, usually during the Floridian summers, it would rain and hard. So most summers we always ended up hanging up fire safety posters, where to go if you got lost, what to do in a fire emergency, all that stuff. And when we had a red flag emergency, all open campfires, barbecues, stationary torches were prohibited. The work was grueling, and most of my days consisted of guiding people through my region, repairing broken equipment, reporting accidents, and, of course, watching out for wildfires and extinguishing open campfires, which all requires me to walk nearly 12 miles with nearly 50 pounds of equipment on my back, from as early as 5:30 a.m. to as late as 1:30 a.m. I took this job after me and my ex-wife fell out of love, and so we split. So I quit my job as a firefighter and decided that if I got out of that toxic relationship, it would be different. We never had any kids considering my infertility and Rose's mental instability, but enough of that. It was a slow, hot and dry day as I was hiking down Long Pine Key Nature Trail. Towards the end of the trail, there was a small lake and a decent camping ground. The trail itself spreads into my region, and my co-worker's region, which is about 7-mile stretch of unpaved road. Just over the State Road 9936 and Ingram Highway. It's not a good idea to trek this without the proper equipment. Most people recommend using a bike to trek it, and to watch out for gators or snakes, but considering my experience with the trail, I decided to trek it alone that day. There weren't many issues, apart from me encountering 2 alligators on the trail, and a yellow-bellied king snake, and having to shoo it into the bushes. When I returned to my watchtower, I began the night shift. I walked a grueling 5 flights of stairs, made myself a 3rd sandwich with tuna, canned tomatoes, lettuce and salt, and sat at my desk reading The Glass Castle, when a screech of static came from the radio on my desk. I turned up the volume and began to listen in, when another crack came in, and then came in my co-worker, Connor's voice. His voice was panicked as his voice cracked on the radio. Last I heard from him was around 8 o'clock when he was headed towards his tower for the night. It was now 9:30 p.m. 1062 Tower 4, he said into his radio. Did you hear that? Over, he said again into his radio. This time I perked up. Now, I've been working at the Everglades for about 5 years now, and Connor has a reputation for being the camp coward. When I was training him back in 2015, he jumped at everything he saw. And of course, he developed a semi-tough skin, but of course, the kid would shit his pants at the moment he felt he was in danger. So I picked up the receiver and answered, since I felt like Connor would freak out if I didn't answer. 10-4 Connor, what's up? Something's out here with me. God damn it, Connor. This is the Everglades. It's probably an alligator or a snake. You don't understand. There's a foul smell like shit and skunk. I keep hearing. Connor's radio cut out, and I kept trying to radio Connor when a loud cry echoed through the night. I had assumed it was a deer or something, so at first I brushed it off. Then Connor's radio cut on. There it is again! That scream! It's not human! Nick! It's not! Connor's breathing became more and more heavier as he began to run. I shouted into the receiver and urged him to stop running. Connor, listen to me closely. Are you near any rest stops? There was a pause and a click. According to the map, it shows the nearest rest stop is 3 miles from where I am. Which is? Pinelands Trailhead. Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me, Connor. It's here, Connor said as I heard a clank and ape-like grunts. Get away from me, you creature! I heard him scream as I heard the grunts and growls followed up with a loud and horrifying bone crunch. Then Connor's radio went dead. For the past hour, I tried radioing other towers to no response. I stayed up into the late hours of the night as I kept radioing for help, but no use. Where are you, Connor? You haven't seen what I've seen unless you've been to the Everglades. Part 2. Let's get straight into that. It was about 2:35 a.m. when I passed out at my desk from exhaustion, but when I woke up at 5:09 a.m, it was dead quiet, apart from the crickets that chirped outside and the occasional owl hooting in the early morning air. I rolled my neck around and tried to get the knots that were built up loose. My radio was still blinking on from hours before, only now there were chatters coming from the Tower 2 and Tower 1. Morning Towers 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1097. Tower 2 checking in. Over. Mary spoke through the radio. Mary had worked here longer than me, probably coming in seasonally for maybe a decade, and was the most experienced out of all of us. She trained me how to handle situations when I first came here, as a heartbroken 35-year-old, and she taught me what were the fastest trails to take in case of an emergency, so I knew she was my best bet at getting help. I picked up the receiver and checked in. 10-4, Tower 2. Nick checking in. 10-4, Tower 4. Good morning. I tried to put into words what had happened last night, and so I wanted to tell them if they saw or heard anything at all. Picking up the receiver and said, Tower 1, Tower 2, 1062. Did any of you see or hear anything strange? 10-4, Tower 4. Nothing unusual, Mary said to me in a slight chipper voice. Why? Tower 3 isn't responding, and last night I heard a howl. Connor was panicked. Last seen 3 miles from Pinelands Trailhead. 10-4, Tower 4. I'll alert State Ranger officials to keep aware. Stay in your towers until it's deemed safe. Over. 1069, Tower 1. I thought that maybe Connor got lost when trying to make his way back to the tower, or that he made it back. Needless to say, I didn't start my patrol until the sun was fully up, and the State Park Rangers came on the radio and gave the all clear. I couldn't really fully explain why, but a part of me didn't want to leave my tower, but I had to do my rounds. So I forced myself out, packing my 2 gallons of water, my 2 ham and cheese sandwiches, and my equipment. I ended up taking a spare walkie and left my main one on charge at my tower. During my walk, it was relatively peaceful as the day went on. The heat went from 85 Fahrenheit to 100, and then that's when the clouds began to roll in. This was bliss, and although it didn't rain that day, it provided a temporary coolness as clouds passed over. All day, I was thinking about Connor, and a bad feeling washed over me when I approached the entrance of the campsite to Long Pine Key hiking trail. My heart dropped. There was a radio. It was smashed and was still emanating a noise similar to static. My heart rose into my throat. I could feel it beating rapidly as I had a hard time swallowing. I looked around rapidly and was about to call it in when just 30 feet ahead of me there was a finger. It was dried up and the puddle around it was a brownish red hue. It was gnawed down to the third knuckle and the fingernail was blue. It was about a good 5 seconds when I ran away. Note: I am 6'7", 200-pound man. It took a lot to scare me. When I saw that finger, it made me retch. As soon as I could comprehend what I saw, I pulled out my spare walkie and began to radio in, shakily. Tower 1, 2, 1018, 1062, 1020, Region 4, 1033. I was far too shaken to even say the codes in the right order. 10-4, Nick, what's going on? Mary replied. 1062, I found a finger and a radio. 10-4, en route to your location. Stay in the open area. I will be there shortly with authorities. It was about a good 2 hours until state rangers arrived and I had shown them the area where I found the figure. That week the entire park was closed and hysteria began to run amok as rumours began to spread through the park. I would often get people asking about the finger, and soon ancient legends began emerging about how the finger that I had the misfortune of finding was a child's finger or someone who was lost in the marshland and mauled by a crocodile. Others claimed that maybe it was a skeleton of an ancient burial ground of Indians and that the finger was well preserved. Some began to make outlandish theories of cannibals roaming the park. The state park rangers questioned all of the Firewatch crew when I told them about Connor and how we went missing the night prior. The officers took the broken radio and did a full-on scan of 300 acres of land, using helicopters equipped with heat sensors and airboats, but nothing ever came up. Then again, the Everglades is massive, and it could be anywhere. I went home on Monday morning. I turned everything off in my cabin and ended up driving 4 hours home. The week the park was closed, I had a hard time sleeping in my own bed. Maybe it was Connor's blood-curdling screams at the other end of the radio, or the bone crunching that got me. All I know is that the Sunday morning I returned, restocked and reloaded, and ready to take on the day. My region and all of the trails had torn down caution tape. That I had the leisure of picking off. It was about 11 a.m. when Mary pulled up in a golf cart with Vaughn and parked it right by the trail sign. They both stepped out and she called to me. "Nick!" I looked up and Mary waved me over. "Welcome to Region 4, I greeted the both of them. Vaughn never really liked me or the whole Firewatch job as a whole, so we never really spoke on the radio or bothered to have a conversation. Vaughn didn't even like the warm Florida weather or the mosquitoes, and half the time it was rare to hear his input on half the situations that happened. It was only when he spotted a fire or a pillar of smoke that he reported. Yet to see him standing in khaki shorts, doused in SPF 50 and mosquito repellent in 90-degree heat was a shocker to me. Mary greeted me with her strong grip and Vaughn gave me the cold shoulder. "Nick, there was something off about Connor," Mary said to me as we walked to the picnic area. "You said that the last time you saw Connor, he was in your region. There's no way he could have gotten lost so easily. Plus, we're experts. All three of us know the parks in and out, every nook and cranny, every mile from here," Mary began. "So what are you exactly implying?" I interrupted her. "Well, I mean, the cops and Search and Recover did a really shitty job at searching and investigating. So we should take matters into our own hands. We go and search for Connor all day and all night. I looked at her in disbelief. Was she really trying to get me to go out late at night? A part of me screamed that this was a bad idea from step one. Yet, I wanted to know if Connor was really okay. I knew it was stupid of me, and being stupid is what cost everything. So later that night, me and Vaughn met Mary at the entrance to Gumbo Limbo hiking trail. It was a pretty well kept trail, and common for people to go here, and it was just off Ingram. So, when we began walking with flashlights in tow. Now I should note the trail is about 0.4 miles. Most of the trail is paved. The trail ends up at the old Ingram Trail, just past the fork where the trail splits into two. The trail itself is like a jungle with overhanging canopy and many, many Gumbo Limbo trees and royal palms, hence the name of the trail. As all three of us walked, we called out Connor's name in the darkness, and it wasn't until we reached the fork was when things started to get weird. For starters, Vaughn began to get paranoid. He constantly told us that he would get shivers down his back and that he felt like something was watching us. He would mutter under his breath that he was certain that he was being watched. That's when we heard it. A loud scream cut through the quiet night like butter, and chills ran up and down our spines. Vaughn was left terrified. It wasn't even 5 minutes before we heard it again. It was closer. By instinct, my fight or flight responses were kicking in, so I picked up a branch and held it by its sharper end. Vaughn's face was pale, and Mary had owned a sharpened switchblade. She pulled it out and stood next to me while holding a flashlight. Then, it was silent. It was unnaturally silent to the point where we could just hear the light, dry breeze blowing in the wind. Mary waved the flashlight around until it fell on a pair of red-orange orbs. She whispered to me and her face went pale. "Nick, look!" She was frozen in fear. The orbs were a good 9 feet off of the ground. They watched us carefully. The bushes rustled as the figure stepped out on all fours. A foul odour followed it. "Holy sh!" I began to say as Vaughn did the most dumbest shit I'd ever seen. Vaughn made loud grunting noises as he attempted to make himself look bigger, even though he was a scrawny built 5'7" man. He puffed up his chest, outstretched his skinny arms and made human noises and grunts. This clearly didn't work as it angered the creature. It screamed, that scream we had heard over the past few days. It wasn't a scream but more of a howl. It hurt our ears, causing them to ring, and it slammed its massive hands on the ground and ran straight for Vaughn. It picked him up with ease, and then, as Vaughn screamed, it twisted Vaughn's skinny waist a full 360, snapping his spine with incredible force and a sickening bone-crunching noise. At this point, I was paralysed as the creature then tossed Vaughn on the floor and proceeded to dislocate Vaughn's joints and pull them away like they were rotisserie drumsticks. I watched in horror as the creature stared at Vaughn's now hairy and torn off leg, tossed it to the side and turned towards me and Mary, who were now frozen in our place. I can't remember what really happened next, but me and Mary got separated at the fork and I was left running for my life. I was screaming as the wild creature ran on all fours, and I was left with two. I was shaking like crazy, tears and snot running down my face. Not a pretty sight. It was only until I tripped on a loose stone and scraped my leg that the creature caught up to me, grabbed me by my left arm and ripped it off cleanly, and then ran off into the night. So, there I was in the dark, with sweat, blood, snot and tears. My heart was rapidly beating, trying to comprehend what had just happened. My arm was gone. I tore off part of my t-shirt as an attempt to make a tourniquet, tied it around my shoulder, and I limped to the end of the trail. I was lucky that night, because the moment that I reached the Royal Palm Visitor Centre, there was a state park ranger sitting in his car. He saw me limping and immediately got out of his car and ran over. All I know is I saw my vision fading out I ended up blacking out on the pavement. You haven't seen what I have seen unless you've been to the Everglades. Final chapter. Let's get straight into that. When I came to in the hospital room, it was Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. My window had its blinds drawn and my eyes felt heavy. I questioned whether what I saw was real until I struggled to sit up. That's when I realised my arm was gone. Vaughn was dead. Mary was missing. It wasn't until the next morning that detectives grilled me in bed about Vaughn's corpse and Mary being missing. At some point, they even accused me of killing Vaughn and Mary by blatantly saying that I cut off his leg and broke his back. But that theory was quickly eradicated, considering that if I were to kill someone, that I wouldn't deliberately rip off my own arm, and a normal 6'7" man simply cannot twist someone else's spine 360 degrees and tear off their leg. I'm not insane enough for that. The detectives then took notes and got onto the topic of Connor. They asked me easy questions at first. What was Connor like? How long did you work with Connor? Were you and Connor close? Then, as the interrogation got intense, so did the questions. Was Connor like a son to you? What happened the days before Connor went missing? Are you aware that finger you found at the end of Long Pine Key Trail was Connor's? What exactly did you say the night Connor went missing? All I could do was be in excruciating pain from my now stump-like arm and answer questions to the best of my ability. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital, constantly being cared for by nurses and doctors that were treating my physical, throbbing pain that shot through my shoulder, and being grilled by different detectives. Life after that wasn't any better. After my accident, I was sent into outpatient care and was able to be sent home. I was harassed by news journalists looking to get insight on what I saw, often peeking through the windows to my own house, banging on the doors in the early hours. I could never get out or get groceries. The harassment got so bad that even stepping out on the back porch, I got harassed. I eventually downloaded Postmates and Instacart on my phone so that I could get my basic tasks done. My neighbours saw me differently though. They thought I was a murderer, and some believed my story, that all three of us were brutally attacked in the night, and others were extremely sceptical. Eventually, I got calls from my ex-wife Rose. She told me to just fess up, say I killed them, and that it would be easier on me and my co-workers' family. I made it solid that I never did kill them. I started getting death threats from anonymous people on Twitter, saying that I was lying about killing them and that they would gut me alive. I bought a home security system that was always armed, no pun intended, and had several locks installed on my front and back doors. After my medical leave was done, I put my resignation through to the fire captain, and since then, never went back to firefighting, fire watching, or anything of the sorts. 6 weeks after resigning, news came in and they found Mary's mangled corpse in a marshland swamp area. Her body was in a terrible shape. Her skin was eaten away by the Everglades wildlife. Her eyes, fingers, and a good chunk of her leg was gone. They labelled Mary's death as an accident. Detectives concluded her death by exposure. I haven't been back to the Everglades since, and since then, I've been hearing things. Maybe it's my imagination, or maybe it's the lack of sleep. I don't know. But each night, as I close my eyes, I hear things that I heard that night, so long ago. Whatever you do, if you live in Southeast Florida, don't go to the Everglades. For my sake, and yours. Wow, lovely short series there. Thank you ever so much, Gas Menocide. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share and help build this channel and community. Whilst you're here, guys, do check that the notification bell is on. A lot of my programs that I am subscribed to have no notification bell at the moment. It's something to do with YouTube updating their systems or whatever they do in the background over there in the office. Just check that it is on, and then you will get my notifications. I know some of you have complained about not having a notification, so just check that. As ever, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you're well and happy. And above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.